Andy, welcome back to the channel. Friend of the channel, Andy Rourke.
Yeah,
nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving up your time and coming along to chat to us about Forum Square Games and how things are going.
It's a pleasure. That's good.
So what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, quite a lot's happened. Got another 2 games out since we last spoke. So Maida 1806 and Santamor and Capri have now been fulfilled to backers. So everyone should have their games now.
Great.
And that's been good. It's happened really over the last sort of month or two. Everyone's been getting them. Getting some good feedback. Lots of contact with people who seem to like it, which is what we want. Been to PunchCon just recently, big show in Coventry, where we was demoing next games. We're aiming to release another game on GameFound, hopefully July this year, so July 25. We'll be going on GameFound with Don in the Sacred Heart, which is our game based on the Vendée uprising of 1793 in France.
Interesting.
So the game just covers the 1 year or the 9 months from sort of March when the levy en masse happened through to kind of the end of the year, sort of December-ish time, that period.
Right.
In that period, it's game-wise, it's probably the most interesting because both sides have a good chance of being able to do something, whereas later on it becomes really quite repressive on the Vendée, and so not much of a game there. But it's been really interesting. Totally different take on fighting. It's civil war. Lots of interesting differences. You've not got 2 fronts fighting each other. You're totally intertwined, the 2 armies. The Republicans keep sending troops and armies into the Vendée to try and crush the rebellion.
Sure.
And the Vendéens are coming out to the major towns. But the peasant armies for the Vendéens, the royalists and the armies keep sort of fading away again. Every time they capture somewhere, they then disappear, which we had to kind of work out how we could reflect that in the game mechanics. And I think we've come up with a really good way of doing that. So I really love it, actually. It's a really interesting game, very enjoyable, lots of decision points for both players. So hopefully people enjoy that. That's coming out soon. Also at PunchCon we was demoing Jersey, which is another game, where the game following the Vendée is going to be Jersey, New Jersey, the game's called. And a bit like Santamor and Capri, it's going to be 2 games in 1 box.
Right, great.
Jersey covers the French invasion of the island of Jersey during the American Revolution. Which not many people have kind of heard about.
No, and a different direction from the Napoleonic.
Not Napoleonic or French Revolution. So we're moving into the American Revolution.
Right.
So as part of the American Revolution, the French thought they would take this opportunity to try and grab Jersey. So I wanted to do an American Revolution game because next year, 2026, is going to be the 250th anniversary. I thought it'd be interesting to bring a game out,
definitely,
but offer something that maybe is a bit different.
Very different,
but then, so I thought I'd tie that with 2 games in a box. I thought I'd tie that with something that everyone would know. So New Jersey is the 10-day crossing of the Delaware, Battle of Princeton, Battle of Trenton. That sort of period. It might go a little bit more than 10 days. Cover the Forage War, which is just slightly after the Washington had taken Princeton. He sort of goes into winter quarters, and then this Forage War starts for the next sort of month or 2.
Sure.
Whilst the winter carries on. So the game might roll into that a bit as well. But basically, so in 1 box you have probably the most famous campaign of the American Revolution, paired with probably the most least known campaign of the American Revolution. Which I thought would be quite interesting to put in 1 box.
Very interesting.
And then the company is, we're starting to look at other publishers. So chap Peregrine Nichols approached us about the Jersey game. So that's his design.
Great.
We're using the Limits of Glory series, which other games are. But Peregrine's designing that. But we've had other designers approaching us and submissions with other games outside of Limits of Glory. And so following Jersey, we're looking at doing a French Indian war game.
Okay.
which hopefully again towards the end of this year that'll be becoming available.
Brilliant.
Or go to GameFound.
Yeah.
And that's by two designers. They're brothers. They're Americans.
Okay.
John and Mark. I think it's Wansky.
Okay.
I'm not sure the pronunciation. If they're watching this, they can write to me and say you said my name wrong.
I'm sure they'll be pleased to. You've dropped their names into, into the video anyway.
They've designed, I know Mark especially has designed for Columbia in the past.
Okay.
And they're both very much into history teachers. I think one of them was a professor of history.
Right.
And they came to this really, really interesting game about the entire campaign, the French Indian Wars, the entire war really covers the whole period. But playable, in an evening.
Great.
Simple mechanics, but lots of good decision points.
Good.
So there's a lot coming through.
There is a lot. Yeah. It sounds like you've been very, very busy, to say the least.
Yeah. It's been good. It's a very enjoyable journey. I'm enjoying it.
Good. And you mentioned PunchCon. Unfortunately, I didn't get there this year, but I hope to go next year. But I know you've got another event you're planning yourself for the beginning of 2026, Square Bash.
That's right.
So tell us a bit more about that. What's your plans with that?
Yeah, well, so Form Square Games have been sponsors of PunchCon for the last 3 years. And it's a fantastic show. Absolutely love it. Second Chance Games and another chap, James Buckley, kind of run PunchCon. And they do a fantastic job. It's such a good convention. Yeah. But it's kind of, it's in the middle of the summer. It's only once a year. You always want more, don't you?
Yeah,
So wanted to, and it's in Coventry as well, which is nothing wrong with being in Coventry, but it's further north. So we thought we'd try and get something going sort of 6 months apart. So we're going for the end of January. I think it's the 30th of January to the 1st of February, that weekend.
Okay.
So very similar model, sort of 3-day hotel-based board game, war game convention. So it'll be all board gaming, not really figure gaming, just board gaming.
Yep.
But any type of board game, war game, any publisher, any period, whatever people want to play. There's no restrictions on it.
Oh, that's good.
There'll be a kind of a raffle as well, and it's based in the hotel, so people can stay in the hotel. Yep. It's at the Europa Gatwick Hotel.
Okay.
So again, a similar type of hotel to PunchCon. So we've based it on that model. Second Chance Games are kind of interested in coming. Some of it's going to depend on numbers. We've had an incredible response. We've sort of asked for people to express an interest if they'd be interested.
Sure.
And we've only got 150 tickets. We've already got 200 people that have written to us, sort of registering their interest in coming. Obviously, they won't all come.
No.
But so we're hoping that we'll sell all the tickets and it'll become quite popular, and we do it each year. And hopefully get someone like Second Chance Games or Second Chance Games themselves to come along.
That'd be great.
And they can bring down all their titles and hopefully sell a few games and support us. And if we can get any other publishers to come along. We've got quite a few sponsors already. The Society of Ancients are one of their first sponsors.
Great.
But we've had the Gamers HQ and Snafu are supporting us.
Brilliant.
Dice Sports, who are a board game manufacturer, they're supporting us as well. Nuts Publishing, they've agreed to be a supporter. So we're getting quite a lot of traction and interest. Players Victus magazine as well, they're supporting us, and they're going to donate some stuff for our raffle. So it's been really good actually, really positive, lots of interest.
It's nice to see the hobby really flourishing as well, and the interest. I'm going to have to get my ticket early by the sound.
Well, I mean, 3 days in a hotel playing games all weekend. I mean, what's not to like about that? Exactly.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
It's nice that that's picking up. I mean, only 5-10 years ago, probably in the UK, you didn't really hear of those kind of things. No. I know PunchCon's been going a little while now, and I think Second Chance Games do their own one as well, don't they? Is it SCG Con as well?
They do. I think they started doing a second event in Liverpool. I think they based it at Liverpool. John Lennon Airport is there in about November time.
Sure.
And that's kind of only for the last couple of years they've been doing that, sort of spinning off from PunchCon, which is great.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously in the States they've done a lot of these kind of cons for quite a while, and it seems to have come over here and people are really bought into it. So for someone who's never done anything like that before, he might be watching and thinking, actually, I quite fancy that. Is there anything particularly they need to bring or be equipped with or know before they come, or do they just book on, come along for the 2-3 days and just play games? What would you say to them? How would they approach it?
So it's based in a hotel, but you don't have to stay in the hotel. So if you live in the southeast, you could travel each day if you wanted to. So you're not compelled to stay in the hotel.
Okay.
But you can if you want. There's a restaurant and a bar and that there, so you can have your evening meal. We're supplying lunch and teas, coffees, and snacks, morning snacks, and it's all part of the ticket price. So there's kind of basically free food and drink all day. Just buy your evening meal and your breakfast through the hotel. It's really play any game, so you can bring whatever games you want to play, or you just rock up and effectively play other people's games. We'll have an organizer, so once the ticket sales have gone on and we've got an idea of numbers and so on, so the ticket sales are going to go live early June, so we're at the end of May now, so in a couple of weeks time tickets will go live.
Sure.
And then probably a month or two after that, we'll post up what's called the organizer, because we want to do it too far before the actual event. So it's for people. It'll be online, like a spreadsheet, where you can, if you wanted to play, I don't know, let's say you wanted to host a game of Here I Stand. Yeah. You go on the spreadsheet. It's like a Google document type thing that anyone can access. You say, I want to play Here I Stand, starting 10 o'clock Saturday morning. We're going to play for 6 hours. The spreadsheet will have the time slots and everything that you can just slot in. Yeah. So Here I Stand, looking for 5 other players, and then anyone can access that spreadsheet, so they can look on and think, oh, I fancy playing Here I Stand, and they can enter their name in, and you fill up your game. So so you could just go to the convention with no games at all, having never played a game before, and just join in on these different games. If you don't want to do it like that, you can just organise any games with your friends. Just rock up, quite a few people just turn up and just play amongst themselves and their friends, and just and there's often people that might rock up and they've got a game that they need 4 players for, and they've only got 2, and so we can have these like stands that we put on the table, saying looking for players, and they put them on the table sort of half an hour or so before the game's due to start. And then you can decide if you want to join that game. Just introduce yourself and say, I'd love to play whatever they're playing. So virtually all games, I mean, there's so many games, so many rule sets, so many, almost every game you play, there's going to be someone in that game that perhaps hasn't played it before or doesn't know the rules. So there's 1 or 2 people that will be familiar with the rules, or certainly the person that's putting the game on should be familiar with the rules. So they can have a quick 5-10 minute teach before you start. And then, normally within the first turn or 2, people know what they're doing. So you don't feel as though you have to know how to play the game before you play. You can just join the game and fumble along, and by the end of the game, you'll know what to do, but by which time you're already lost.
Sounds good. Exactly. That's great, because it's going to encourage, hopefully, some new people to come along and give it a go. Someone who hasn't done it before. Anyone could come. Which is what the hobby's all about, really, getting new blood in and retaining it as well. And there'll be plenty of people there that will bring lots of games. So if you've got no games, or even if you just want to try a game, you'll probably find somebody else is playing it there, and you can get in on that game. There'll also be like a bring and buy as well. There'll be a big sort of bring and buy area, so people can bring all their games that they no longer need, because people never have too many games. Really? What can I say? So if you find yourself in a position where you've got too many games for some reason, you could always bring those along and stick them on the table. And that kind of operates on, you put your post-it note on it with your name and phone number and how much you want for the game. And then during the convention, if people can look at it and always give you a call and say, I want to buy a game, and they just find you. And so there's no commission, there's no cut. You're just basically selling the game to somebody else. It's just really good, matching people up. It works really well. Good. Yeah, that's good. One person's rubbish is another person's gold, as they say. Exactly. That's so true with games. So I know we're gonna have a chat about donning the Sacred Heart in a bit more detail. I know you brought a prototype along today, and we'll perhaps do that on the next sort of video in a moment. But in terms of your prototype there, I mean, how do you get to that point? Just a little bit of information, really, of how do you start with a concept? So you've come up with this concept of the Vendée Rebellion. How do you then bring across all the things from the Limits of Glory kind of series, the mechanics? How do you then sort of start bringing that into a new type of game where, as you already said, this is going to be a slightly different approach?
Yeah.
Because the conflict was very different to a conventional one.
Yeah, so I mean, fortunately, because we've already got the framework of a game mechanics with the Limits of Glory sort of series, the system. So we're kind of, as the games are evolving, we're looking at the theme and the specifics, what makes those campaigns unique, and we're trying to choose campaigns that are different and interesting and not mainstream. The system really wouldn't work well on, you know, the 1812 advance on Moscow or something. You know, this is not for that. This is very much kind of fringe theatre, irregular troops against regular troops. You know, it works really well where you've got small armies, mishmash of troop types, and so the starting point, we know now, you know, I know we're going to need a combat table, I know we're going to need an event table and so on. So really, when I started doing the Vendée, the first thing you've got to do is just read everything you can about your subject matter in the English language. So unfortunately, there's not a tremendous amount of sources in the English language on the Vendée. There are some. I think I've read about 12 books in English on the Vendée. There's far more French source. Unfortunately, I don't speak French, so it makes it very hard. You can translate it. Google Translate and things are good. So there's a couple of things that I have kind of just little bits of detail about certain things where I've translated it. But generally, I've tried to absorb myself in the subject for 2 or 3 months really until you get a picture in your head of everything you want to try and achieve and what you want the game to do. And then you really want to kind of think about the force scale and the size, you know, which commanders do you want to represent, you know, which troops, and then work out which physical area, you know, what part of the map you want to represent. So you're building up a picture in your head of the framework that you want to design the game in. And then literally I just kind of basically sat down with a big bit of paper and a pen and just sketched out a rough map and just kind of drew in some spaces and some borders and roughly put where the towns were that I wanted to influence the game and so on. And then just literally you just start putting some counters down, working out what should be where, seeing how it works, adjusting things to make sure, you know, there's no kind of, oh, well, if you go there and there, that's a shortcut to this, and it all, you know, people always want to do that. So you've got to try and, early on, you're trying to build out the board so it makes a good, interesting game for movement and so on. And you do all that before you need to worry about trying to make the board look pretty or anything like that. It's literally just, you are just purely looking at the mechanics of making the game work. And some of it is maths. You do need to kind of mathematically work out what's the probability of certain things happening. With the way the Limits of Glory system works with the events and so on, there's, depending on the number of dice you're rolling for different events, there'll be a different probability at different times in the game, depending. So you need to know all that maths behind it, which is not particularly complicated. It's just probabilities and so on. And then you're trying to fit all the events and everything you want into that framework. And that really is just a bit of kind of put your finger in the air and like, we'll try it here and then see if we need to shift it this way or that way. So it's a kind of a slow process. And then the way I tend to do it is I tend to start building out the components and the prototype at the same time as I'm fleshing out the rules. So once I've kind of established which commanders I want in the game, I'll do the counters and the art and stuff. I'll start making that. So by the time the game is kind of finished, almost in its development, sort of in parallel, the art and the graphic design has come along with it. Because I'm fortunate. I've got a daughter who's a graphic designer. And so for the first couple of games I did with Maida and with Bonaparte in Egypt, my daughter really helped me quite a lot with doing that, and she did a lot of that using sort of Photoshop and Illustrator. But we also did a lot on well, it's not a free app. It's a £10. It's called Procreate. and you can download it onto your tablet. So an iPad.
Yeah.
And it uses all the sort of same principles as Photoshop. You have layers and you're drawing on your layers and stuff. And so the board for Bonaparte's Eastern Empire and the board for Maida were all drawn on an iPad with £10 software.
Wow.
That's it. The whole thing was just done with software that's cost 10 quid. And I had to learn that, and my daughter helped me to start, but it wasn't hard. And there's loads and loads and loads of YouTube tutorial videos. You know, how do I draw such and such? Go on YouTube, how do I draw such? And there it is. There's loads of people showing you how to do it. How do I write something? How do I make something curve? And you can just, so you basically teach yourself how to use Procreate.
Yeah.
It costs you next to nothing to buy it. It's just £10 and that's it. There's no ongoing subscription. You just buy it and you've got it.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's brilliant. You know, as I say, the whole of Bonaparte's Eastern Empire was produced on a £10 software package on Procreate.
So great tip for budding board game developers.
So you don't need. I mean, you could argue it's not the best graphic design in art, and you know I'd be the first to admit that it's not. But you know, you don't need to go jumping straight in. I need to employ a graphic designer. I need to pay for loads of art to be done. You can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And because of all that process, because it is like a little mini version of Photoshop, everything you're kind of learning in it is kind of the same as Photoshop. A lot of the principles are the same, a lot of the techniques are the same. And so after I finished doing Maida, it made me decide, right, I'm gonna bite the bullet and get Adobe Photoshop Suite.
Right.
So Illustrator, which is really, you lay out the board and the box and everything on Illustrator. But it's also got InDesign, which is for the rule book. All the rule books are done in InDesign. And Photoshop. But all three of those packages, they're all Adobe and they all run on the same sort of principle. So once you've kind of got your head around one of them, you can transfer between the other two really easy. All the functions are the same, the keys are the same. You're just doing slightly different things with them. And so I've self-taught myself Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. So like all of the rule books, so in Maida, Capri, and Maida, all the rule books are all done on InDesign, which I just did myself.
Great.
But the Adobe sort of suite that you have to buy, well, you don't buy. They've caught on to buying, and you now have to subscribe.
Yes.
And it's not cheap. So my subscription is something like £56 a month to access the software.
Okay.
So you really don't want to be doing that when you first start. So start with something like Procreate, teach yourself how to do it, and then when you go on to the more advanced programs that allow you to do more stuff, you already kind of know more than half of it, and it all seems quite intuitive and quite simple. And when people say, "Oh, yeah, Photoshop's really complicated," you think, "Oh no, it's easy because it's just like Procreate, but just a little bit more advanced." So I'd highly recommend anyone to do that.
That's good.
So
Excellent.
Teach yourself graphic design. Sort of very okay.
No, that's really helpful stuff. I mean, from day one, we've talked about this a lot, you know, and I have on my videos. I love the design layout of the boards, the rule books, the color schemes. We talked a bit about the flags on the boxes, you know, and I love the fact that there's that uniformity of each game, even though you're now taking off into maybe different periods. It'll be nice to see how you do that, because again, thinking about like the artwork that you've used, a lot of that is Napoleonic era. So how are you going to sort of, or have you any plans at the moment of how you're going to do the revolution, for example, and things like that?
So I mean, the Vendée is 1793.
That's not so difficult, I suppose, from that point of view.
The French invasion of Jersey is 1781.
Okay.
So it's only 12 years different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of these the pictures on the boxes and so on, and the illustrations are done by chaps like James Gilray, Isaac Cruikshank, and his son George Cruikshank. And these are kind of political cartoonists of the time. But these cartoons started kind of much earlier, sort of, you know, the 1740s, 1750s, 1760s. There's a lot of cartoons. So Isaac Cruikshank, by the time we get into the Napoleonic period, it's right at the end of his career. And George Cruikshank, his son, is kind of taken over. So Isaac Cruikshank's drawings go back much earlier. So, during the American Revolution, plenty of political cartoons. There's just so much material out there, and all this is easy to access. It's all public domain. So basically, because it's so old, it's effectively it's not owned by anybody, and so you're free to access it. There's a website called Wikimedia. It's a bit like Wikipedia, but it's Wikimedia. And on that, they have all the public domain. Well, not all they have lots and lots of public domain art that you can access. It's right that you kind of quote, what you're using. So, I'm using all the art and all the games on the Board Game Geek page, on everything. I've listed, I'm crediting who the artists are, because it's their artwork, and it's really important that it's listed.
Absolutely,
but you don't have to pay for it. It's effectively free. In fact, Board Game Geek, I wanted. So there's lots of games that have got Gilray and Cruikshank art in them. But when I listed Bonaparte's Eastern Empire, James Gilray and Isaac Cruikshank weren't even listed on Board Game Geek as artists, and I had to get them registered so they could get credit for their art. So all the games out there that are using this style of art, none of them are giving credit to the artists, which I think is quite sad. I mean, obviously they died 250 years ago, but it's still their art. They should get the credit for it. So starting out, if you haven't got the budget, I mean, I haven't got the budget to pay. If I said I'm going to get an artist to illustrate the whole game, that would cost probably more than my entire sales of the game. So it's a non-starter.
No,
so it's a way in. Eventually, I would like to have artists. I'd like to have a graphic designer who's obviously do it a lot better than I can do it. But I've got to build up to that stage. I don't want to jump in too big. I want to make sure that what I'm doing grows organically. The number of sales grow, and as I get more people interested, sell more copies, I can then afford to then pay illustrators and pay artists to do it. Because I'd love to be able to think, I want a picture of such and such, I'll get someone to do that for me. Whereas at the moment I have to scroll through hundreds and hundreds of images trying to find something that might suit. So it would be nice to be able to afford to get that done, and that is the kind of the end goal, really, to
building the brand,
to build that up.
Which takes time. It takes time, and you've obviously had a lot of success already with your Game Found launches. The games you've already got going out there, and the ones you've got in pipeline as well. So just on a completely sort of side note to wrap up this short chat, what about yourself then? What, outside of all this time spent with Form Square Games, what gaming do you like to do yourself? What wargaming or board? I know you wargame as well as board games. So what have you been doing lately? What's your current projects that you're involved with? Things you like doing?
Well, so I really came into the hobby more from the figure gaming side. So I'm a member of Guildford Wargames Club. We've got a Facebook group, Guildford Wargames Club. Anyone can join it. Just and you can see what we do. We meet Monday nights, and that's really great club. A lot of members. It's well supported, and different games there. Every week there's a lot going on. A lot of it's figure gaming, but we do board gaming there as well. And every week we post up all the games that have been played each week with pictures and so on. So if anybody's interested in that, they can always just join Guildford Wargames Club Facebook group. So I do a lot of that. I'm in a kind of a board gaming group of friends where we tend to meet up once a week or once a fortnight, certainly. And there's it's grown to about 12 of us now. But depending on who's available each week and the player count, that we'll then play games. So recently played quite a bit of Twilight Imperium, the big space exploration 6-player thing. So if there's 6 of us and we've got all day, sometimes we play that. I find that quite fun. Did a bit of Terraforming Mars the other day as well, which is a bit of a Euro sort of game.
That's very popular.
Dune Imperium, played that the other day again. Very kind of Euro-y style type thing. What else have I been playing? I played Angola for the first time.
Okay.
Well, I played it for the first time back in Vanguard. There's another show just outside Reading, in Aldermaston Way, called Vanguard. So I played Angola there for the first time. That was last October, November. I played it again 2 or 3 weeks ago. Really love that game. Really.
Which company produced that? Is that a GMT or is it a coin?
I think it's MMP.
MMP, right? Yeah.
And Volker Runke, who does a lot of the coin games.
Yes.
He actually quotes Angola as the game that he got the inspiration to make a coin game from.
Oh, okay.
And when you play Angola, you really realise why.
Yeah.
I would say it's one of the best games I've ever played.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it.
Right.
Really enjoyed it. It's really, well, it's just really interesting. You're playing kind of 2 against 2, and it's about the Angolan Civil War. And you win as a pair, but you're doing the different factions. There's the UNITA and the MPLA and FAPLA and all these different factions that you are.
Sure.
But it's chaos, and you're getting all these kind of reinforcements, and the scoring system's really clever. And there's mercenaries, and it's just, there's loads to it, loads of thematic kind of chrome, but not in a way that makes the game difficult to play.
No. Great.
And really interesting. So I really enjoy playing that. So
good.
So I keep trying to play as many different games as possible.
Yeah.
Keep the old brain juices going, looking at different things.
Got to keep trying, haven't we?
Yeah.
Gotta keep trying.
Yeah. But just playing whatever I can get my hands on, really.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, well look, we'll bring her into our chat now, because I know we're going to have a little break and then we're going to chat some more your other games as well, maybe play a turn or so, show the viewers a little bit more how the game actually works in practice.
Yeah.
I think that'd be quite helpful.
I could give you some tips on how to play, and then you'll always lose.
I definitely need some tips to play. Always need some tips on how to play. But yeah, that's great. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me.